households, then we need to run all three of the utilities together, whether it's advisory board or independent board. And
Why is that again? I don't remember the...
Larry, if I've heard you talk about budgets once, I've heard you talk about
Yeah, but-
budgets 200 times. I'm not going to explain that to you.
But,
Tori, you got something to say?
I don't remember now, but sorry, I did earlier, but it's gone.
But I mean,
Sorry.
that's kind of where was trying to get to. I know everybody's got their own opinions, but that's where I was trying to get to. And actually, I think we're kind of there,
Well, I
I do have
at
one
least
more.
on the front end. I mean, on the long term.
Heath, before you ask a question, can I clarify something the mayor just said? So if I'm translating right, what you're telling me is that current and future councils cannot run the EUB or a derivative of successfully. Think carefully.
You know, well, thanks for that,
My pleasure.
Randy.
Yes.
I do appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
You know, back in 2010, before I ever ran for public office, I was already thinking carefully about this. And one of the other things that I was always talking about, and I referenced the last time we had this discussion, is that I wanted citizen involvement, because there is plenty of talent, smart, motivated, willing volunteers right here in Gardner that would be willing to provide an extra layer of study and planning to, you know, whether it's the planning commission or an economic development committee or an ad hoc committee or the comprehensive advisory committee. I know that there's people out there that are smart and willing to drill down on issues to a degree that I haven't seen council do, and all the time that I've been attending council meetings, which doesn't include just the time that I've been sitting at council. There's Tori's over there. She's been attending more council meetings than I have. Jerry's back there. David Frank's back there. Jack's here. These guys all have attended as many or more council meetings than I have, and for longer. And I guarantee you, if we took a little poll, they'd tell you that the utilities don't get the kind of study that they probably ought to, and they don't get the kind of study that the EUB gives them.
I just wanted to clarify.
Mark, I'm sorry, Randy. Let me ask a real pointed question, actually. Let's just bring it back to the proposed provisions that we tabled and brought tonight. As there's been 2 weeks now, I know that everyone probably on the board's had a chance to review these pretty thoroughly, and I know you've had the special session to discuss these even more. What have you identified as the critical issues with the way the proposed revision is written now for the new ordinance? Well, let's get right to that.
The proposed ordinance essentially strips the EUB of decision-making powers.
Okay.
And by doing so, I feel like you're losing the benefit that we found in that BPU investigation committee. That, sure, you'll have that knowledge if you have an advisory board, but advice is only so good if you don't put it into practice. And as the mayor just stated, it's pretty clear that it's not put into practice when it hits the council.
Okay.
No offense to this council.
Actually,
but-
I'm going to take real quick exception with that, and I'll tell you why.
Fine.
Planning Commission sends us recommendations all the time, and I would poll all the same people about how often Planning Commission recommendations get voted down. I miss Jim Melvin already. I enjoyed working with him for the time that I was on council and since I was mayor. And Jim could really advise us from a professional and technical level. And we didn't always take his recommendations because we didn't always study the issues as hard as we probably should have when Jim was up making presentations to us. And Jim wasn't a group of citizens. that we appoint that was making that kind of recommendation to city council. I think that the idea of the recommendation coming from a board of citizens is gonna carry a lot more weight as far as doing the right thing when the time comes.
But we just did that, you know, as a council in a meeting about the gun ordinance. I mean, so I don't know why we need a committee to
I know
make
you don't know why,
recommendations.
Larry.
I mean, we have the greatest institutional knowledge is Bill Project, right?
Project, yes.
And why do we need that information filtered through other people? I mean, we do this with all the other departments. Jeff gives us recommendations, we ask questions. If he really knows the stuff, the questions, you know, he leads us in the right direction, and we usually, in most cases, adopt what he proposes. Everybody does this. I mean, all the department heads have the same, you know, audience in us, and we have the same ability to ask those questions and drill down to whatever level we think is necessary, just as we did tonight.
Yeah.
And I think the decision we made tonight was the right one on the gun ordinance, and that is that we need more information. So how is this any different with an EUB?
Okay, Jeff, can I ask you a question? You ever had any committees?
Yes,
Were they helpful?
yes.
Okay.
Well, let's ratchet that down a little bit. We talk about how, at first glance, it looks like too many powers are stripped. What specific powers do you think are stripped by the revised ordinance that are going to be counterproductive to continuing the success that the EUB's had?
Number one is the budget. I understand there's a concern on how the numbers ultimately, who's responsible for them, and that seems like something that can be handled rather simply to me. But if the reason that the EUB has control of that budget currently is because if the budget is separate from the city's general fund, you know exactly what monies you have for electric utility matters. So you know, well, I can't do this with electric next year because of this. It doesn't matter that, oh, well, this year we've got a problem with water over here, or the park's doing this over there, which is this group's decision. You have to look at the entire city's budget. But if it's a small section, it's easier to whittle your way through it. And having that control to choose what projects are done when and where is very helpful to give direction to that electric director that Larry mentioned.
Okay, I'm trying to find a direction somehow in here. So let's look at the powers and the duties of the board. So Section A is the real estate and power supply contracts. Is that something that you think, or the board feels, should be handled independently, or could that be successful under advisory role?
So you're looking at Section 3A?
Section 3A, I'm going through the powers and the duties of the board. I think that's where the most issues came from.
I don't have it in front of me, but if you're talking about acquiring land and easements, yes?
This one is actually the board and, sell the electric utilities products and services to public and private corporations and to other consumers. So this is more, and then it does, I believe, talk about construct and operate plants, purchase franchises, and enter into all contracts, leases, and agreements and furtherance thereof.
Are you looking at the updated one?
4A.
You're looking at 4A.
I thought these were the
Of the
proposed
existing
provisions.
ordinance, of the current ordinance.
I'm looking at the proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at 4A on the attached revised agenda, right?
Let's see, I'm on.
It says red, right above it, proposed revisions.
Right above her.
Well, and then in the bottom right corner,
But it says proposed provisions in the lower right corner.
and you say
Section
you're on,
3, powers and duties of the board, item A. And I'm sorry, I don't have a copy to share with Mark. I don't know if maybe someone has an extra that they might be able to.
Oh, I
So,
think
in
I got the
regards
gist of it.
to, let's just say purchasing of franchises or, purchasing of real estate. Those transactions, in my opinion, tend to be something that might be a little bit longer process. They're not immediate need transactions that happen on an emergency basis. So from an advisory standpoint, is that going to change the way business is handled, and that is going to stay in the way? Under the assumption that you do all the due diligence that we would expect of the planning commission and bring forth a sound solution to be voted upon.
No, with the